May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. The Episcopal Church, like many other Christian denominations, venerates the saints. Many of our churches are named for saints, including this church. We remember certain saints throughout the year with feast days, and on November 1st, we celebrate All Saints' Day, honoring all the saints of the church, those recognized by the whole church, those known to us in our lives, and those known only to God. The word saint, however, can become a stumbling block for us when we use it to set some folks apart from others. We start to feel that maybe we're meant to admire the saints rather than imitate them. Describing someone as saintly can be a way to say that they're made of something holier than what we are made of. Did you know that when Dorothy Day, the founder of the Catholic worker movement, heard someone call her a saint, Day replied, "Don't call me a saint. I don't want to be dismissed that easily." The saints of the church, whether famous or not, are not perfect or superhuman, capable of goodness and courage beyond our grasp. True, some have miracles and wonders attributed to them, but what makes a saint isn't the part of their story that is the most miraculous or astonishing. Now, if you are now or have been in the Roman Catholic Church, you're probably thinking, well, Karen, to be canonized a saint, someone must have miracles attributed to their intercession. And that is indeed part of the process for being canonized by the Roman Catholic Church as a capital S saint. But what I'm talking about is how saint was used by St. Paul and by the early church before there was ever a process for sainthood, which didn't exist until the 13th century. The original understanding of saint was someone who was baptized. A saint was a Christian, someone whose life was set apart as a follower of Jesus Christ. Saints were Christians who lived the life of the gospel faithfully in their time and place, who loved God and followed Jesus in their circumstances. We can see their lives as proof that the gospel can be lived out in the life of an individual. Just like us, they each faced challenges, they had strengths and weaknesses, days of fear and doubt. Karl Rahner said that saints are the initiators and the creative models of the holiness which happens to be right for and is the task of their particular age. He said they create a new style. They prove that a certain form of life and activity is a really genuine possibility. They show experientially that one can be a Christian even in this way. They make such a type of person believable as a Christian type. Reading Rahner's words brings to my mind the saints that I have known. The people who have shown me that Christians can look and think and act in all sorts of different ways. My life, and likely your life too, has been full of quirky saints who've lived holy and yet wholly imperfect lives that were authentically and uniquely their own. Their examples show us many possibilities for how a saint might look, and they help us understand that we can find our own way too. Lesbia Scott was an Englishwoman born in 1898, and as a young mother, she composed a number of children's hymns for her 3 children. In 1929, she published a book called Everyday Hymns for Little Children, which included her hymn, I Sing a Song of the Saints of God. Mrs. Scott set her hymn to a tune she had composed, but the tune you're likely familiar with is Grand Isle by John H. Hopkins Jr., which you'll hear in a moment. A children's book with this hymn as the text describes the hymn this way. we see how saints have demonstrated qualities of courage, joy, love of Christ, kindness, patience, and generosity. Best of all, children discover that they too can become saints, and that these heroes and heroines of the church belong not only to the past, but that the world is bright with joyous saints still. The saints of God today are moms and dads, storekeepers and school teachers, and happily, the saints of God are just folks like me, and I mean to be one too. I Sing a Song of the Saints of God was incorporated into the Episcopal Hymnal 1940, but during the hymnal revision process leading up to the 1982 hymnal that we use now, this hymn was on the chopping block. According to the commission putting together the new hymnal, the hymn lacked theological profundity. Thankfully for us, a letter-writing campaign to keep the hymn saved the day, and we have this hymn in our hymnal. In 2003, an online group called Anglicans Online did a desert island hymn survey. They asked if you could only take one hymn with you to a remote island. I don't know how you would do that, but that was the question. If you could only take one hymn with you to a remote island, what would it be? I Sing a Song of the Saints of God came in number 14, just behind I Come with Joy to Meet My Lord, and just ahead of Lift High the Cross. And if you send in your pledge card, I'll tell you what got first place and second place. I'm so glad that we still have this hymn. We are formed by the hymns we learn in church, and their words matter. Singing that hymn All Saints' Day after All Saints' Day my whole life drilled into my brain and poured into my heart the message that anyone and everyone can be a saint. And that's an important lesson, no matter how old you are. I Sing a Song of the Saints of God taught me that the saints of old, the soldier, the queen, the shepherdess, the one slain by a fierce wild beast, they were not so different from me at all. They each had their own lives and stories and ways of following Jesus. This hymn made me wonder what my own saint story might be, and I never thought for a minute that I couldn't be one too. So today we remember the saints who have died, but we also claim for ourselves the call of finding our own paths to sainthood, our own ways of following Jesus. Just as those who have gone before us were called, so we have been called to show others what it means to love God and to seek and serve Christ in all persons, to respect the dignity of every human being, and to strive for justice and peace in our time, in our place, in our circumstances. By living the Christian life in our own unique, quirky, imperfect ways, someone else gets to see that your way and my way of being a saint is a possibility. We can show those we meet that despite our flaws and obstacles, we have thrown ourselves heart and soul into following Jesus' way of love. And they can too. You never know when seeing a saint who looks like you or looks like me might be exactly what someone else needs to see, to be able to say, there's not any reason, no, not the least, why I couldn't be one too. Amen. Let us together affirm our sainthood by renewing the baptismal covenant, which is found on page 304.